Hi. Uh, Thanks for clicking in and checking it out. I was going to do a spirit talk today that didn't happen, so I thought that I would do it here on a program that allows you to be in the comforts of your own wherever you are, where and how you want to consume the content or click through or not, right? So the thing that I wanted to talk about today, I was just kind of wanting to share how my journey towards self healing and self care eventually ended up leading me towards a spiritual path or put me onto a spiritual path. You kind of during the process, there's like a reconnection with yourself and your inner knowing and your intuition, and then now you're dealing in the spiritual realm, and it just seems like a part and parcel. It's almost like all paths lead home, right? And so if home is within, as so without, then it makes sense that all paths would eventually become spiritual. So I wanted to kind of leave it up to the universe and the people who showed up to hear, to witness, who were um, curious to dictate what was shared and how things kind of came out. You know, being staying true to trusting my intuition and channeling and what comes up and stuff. But I was in a the talk before mine, so mine was at 2:30, and so I went to the 1:31, and that one went longer. And then at 2:30, when the facilitator entered the room to say, you know, yep, there's another speaker coming, and she's actually right there, and everybody kind of was like, oh no, I'm out of here. You know, I'm out. Don't have time. I got to do this. I got to do that. And there were two women that were sitting there that I was already kind of feeling the minute I entered the room. I was feeling something off of. And for the first part of the reading, the first part of the other talk that was happening. Anyways, they kept asking this other person questions. And so I kind of was like, yeah, okay, I'll just go out and, you know, collect people or see who's out there, read the room, feel it out, and let these people finish up, right? And so I'm out there and I'm looking around, and there's not really, you know, everybody's kind of there to get readings or to check things out on the outside. I didn't really, there wasn't much going on. Like nobody was going, when's this talk starting, right? Which was fine. You know, with this kind of thing, I think it was more important for me just to show up. I think the process of coming out, like putting it out there, my Facebook post, which I had a really great response to. But it's not all about any of that, right? I mean, that was all perks and bonuses, and it was beautiful. It just, this is about me owning where I'm at, and showing up is absolutely a necessary part of it. And so, as I was kind of reading the room and seeing and assessing and not seeing anybody, you know, coming to hear my talk or whatever, I ended up having conversations with a couple of the other facilitators, and some really, really beautiful ones and some great ones. And I bought some cards off of one of them. I kept being drawn to them. So those cards are going to be included in my readings in the future. But yeah, and then eventually, you know, she asked me, like, well, what were you going to talk about? And, you know, I just kind of said what I already said here. Going to kind of leave it up and see and feel it out. But basically, speaking about my spiritual path, my spiritual journey, my journey back to self, really, and self empowerment and all that kind of stuff. And um, then I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but I'm recognizing this, like, the saboteur, this sabotage thing, and it reminded me of, you know, my upbringing, and kind of there was always this fear that I was conditioned to, that, you know, you don't want to shine too bright, you don't want to stand out too out in the open because you leave yourself vulnerable, or you put a target on your back, right? People want to um, squash you, basically, if you make yourself known. And there is that. I'm not denying that there isn't that. But it felt quite intentional at one point, because they weren't packing up and getting out of the room. They were lingering in there. Like, I was also waiting for them to exit the room, right? While kind of looking, and they were still in there. And I had left my stuff in there, so I knew I had to go back in. And I was kind of wondering, like, how do I address the situation? But at this point, I was recognizing all these things. Like, it was not the talk was kind of like the vehicle. It wasn't the destination. For me, it was more about the putting myself out there, standing in that place of vulnerability, that open space of uncertainty, and and then finding all those leftover bits that are still within me that are doubting or fearful or still maybe reliant on external validation of some kind or another. And yes, it was those two women who I had felt a thing from when I first walked into that room, and while I was in that room with them, that were waiting around and asking all these external or extra questions to the other person. So I finally went in there and to grab my stuff, and they were like, "Oh, is there another thing going on?" Which right away, like, they were there when the facilitator walked in and said there was another thing going on, and that's her, right? So that was kind of like, yeah. I said, "Yep," at 2:30, and I grabbed my stuff and I said, "Thanks, ladies," and I walked out of there, right? Because I wanted to, well, first acknowledge what they allowed for me. They allowed an opportunity for me to recognize some things in myself that still needs healing, or reminded me that what the point was. The point was about me showing up. The point was about me putting myself out there. The point was about me standing in my truth, regardless of what's going on the external. And it's a really hard, shaky, crazy place to be, to confront, to witness. And so I kind of moved around. The facilitator was busy with her own reading at the time, and then I ended up going to this or being drawn to this other woman who had like tuning forks and was dealing with resonance frequencies and stuff like that, and which was what that last talk that I was listening to, um, you know, it kept the woman that I was listening to was talking about getting these little electronic devices that will produce a frequency, and how when you have it in proximity, how it affects your body and stuff. And my intuition and everything was telling me that it this is something that our bodies are capable of doing. Like when we do the work, when we are aware of the frequencies that we're emitting or that we're tuning into or whatever, these are levels within ourselves that I think we need to figure out a way by doing the work, by releasing and raising your frequency that you get to. So I'm always trying to think of like the benefit of the doubt and stuff like that. So I was kind of wanting to interject or add that this is a great place to kind of let you feel right what it feels like to hold that resonance. But it was making me think of the tuning fork. When you have one tuning fork or two tuning forks standing beside each other and you hit one, the other one will match the frequency, and this is how there's that like resonant frequency. And which is why there's so much power in groups of people, right? Your frequencies start to interact with each other, and it's whether it's harmonic or discordant, right? Um, so, uh, so, anyways, when I saw this woman and she had the tuning forks, I was like, aha, this is what I was thinking. Like this feels more natural, and um, anyways, her and I, we vibed right away. And then as we were talking, the facilitator finished up what she was doing and came over and, just apologized. And she said that she went up into the room and the people said that they were waiting for my talk kind of thing. And I was like, no, that's no, right? Like, no. And then anyways, I ended up having a little bit of a release moment there of just like recognizing that place of vulnerability, of putting yourself out there and pushing through it and showing up either way, right? And and how exactly what I had said before, like it wasn't the talk wasn't the destination, it was the vehicle. Whether it happened or not was inconsequential. It was about the process of getting me there, and then the beautiful interactions that I had along the way, right? Like I had some really good connections, waiting, thinking, considering, moving through, processing, all that. And so that's what I'm grateful for. And none of this was going to be in my talk at all, but kind of is that. It's about tuning in and being accountable for what's going on within you, and um, experiencing the external world as a reflection, right? Like I don't know if it was actually intentional or just um, unintentional from these people, right? Like, I don't think the facilitator of the talk before me, I think she was just, she put a lot of time and energy into preparing for her thing, and maybe an hour wasn't long enough for her. At the end, she was like trying to get everything out. And, but I do think I was feeling intentionality from the two women, kind of like milking her for information and lingering and all that stuff. And then, them kind of being like, oh, is there a talk? When I came in to grab my stuff after it was already made known. And then, when the facilitator went up there, they were like, oh, we're waiting for this talk, right? That whole thing. Um, it's interesting when you're dealing with your intuition, because it's like, am I actually intuiting something, or am I superimposing, am I projecting a limiting belief onto a situation and seeing that instead, right? Which is it's a real thing, like the lenses that we look through, um, and how it affects what we see. And by doing this kind of work where you are healing the self and recognizing the shadowy aspects, all of the parts of yourself, um, it's it can be tricky, right, to recognize which is my intuition and which is my projection. But eventually you get to a point where you see, where you recognize, where you can understand the difference, right? And I was intuiting that. Um, and the other thing too about shining your light, you absolutely are going to trigger other people. And if they can, they might try to throw dirt on your light because you're blinding them, right? But it should always be um, turned into a fuel that makes you shine brighter, right? Where you intentionally set yourself up so that no matter what anybody's throwing on you to try to dim your light or put out your fire, that it becomes fuel, and you shine all the more brighter. Because then eventually you will burn through those people's shadows and allow some of their own light to escape. And, I think this whole leading by example, right? Shining brightly to recondition people into not dimming their own light, to shine so bright that you remind others that they can shine bright too, right? Um, but yeah, it's hard when you're bursting through layers of conditioned fears and avoidances of self and vulnerability. It's really, really hard. And even your own ego, right? Your ego is like, wants to blame external things for what's going on. But it is truly a reflection of what's going on within. And so, I'm not quite at that fully see me now stage of the game. Excuse me. I am still taking steps towards it. And so, so this experience has become another step towards my shine, right? And for that I'm grateful. For that I'm grateful. I will continue along my path. I will continue to release and those things, those limiting beliefs, those things that hold us back, the imposter syndrome, all of those things, and let them go, let them flow. There's a bee in my yard. Yay! The bees are coming out, which means that I can work in my garden soon. So, anyways, push through adversity and keep shining, and eventually, our external will start to reflect our internal, and yeah, and it's a process, right? It's kind of like I'm being shown tracers, right? There's it takes a second for it's almost like thunder and lightning, okay? Speed of sound versus the speed of light. You hear the lightning before you see it. And I think that's how the healing process works. You, oh, sorry, there's a chickadee with the feathers sticking out of his back. Bird. What was I saying? I don't know what I was saying. But anyways, I'm gonna open this deck and we'll pull a card because it's a deck on grieving, and the woman who made it was grieving. It's a deck for grief, Oracle deck for grief. She was grieving when she made it, but all of the images were done when she was in a very happy, loving, full place. And so I just was really drawn to the balance of their creation, the balance between grief and happiness, basically. And so I think that as we grow, as we shed layers of ourselves and recognize, integrate, and heal those versions of ourselves, we're constantly in a state of grief because we're releasing, parts of ourselves that we loved, and they're a part of you, right? So I'm going to give them a shuffle here. Ooh, they're nice. They've got a beautiful gold foil. This is the image on them. You can see. There we go. It's like the seed of life, flower of life. Okay. And I think we'll just cut. Write it out, is what it's saying. Write it out. Yeah, this is about being intentional. And I've been getting that. Be intentional. What does your life look like? What do you want it to look like? What do you want your life to look like? What's your ideal situation? Writing it out, there's power because it's focused intention when you write, right? You're choosing your words carefully and then seeing it. So it's hitting a lot more powerful notes more than just thinking something, right? Okay, and then we've got commemorate. Ooh, what does commemorate mean? Commemorate. I know what consolidate means. Let's see. Commemorate, meaning recall and show respect for someone or something, and celebrate by doing or building something. Ooh, that's really nice. Commemorate. I like that. And I think that's what you're doing when you're writing something out, right? You're creating a thing. You're putting the manifestation into a form of physicality, which is empowering it. Okay. And then the final one, dream time. I'll show you these beautiful pictures. I don't know if you can see them here. No. But yes, dream time. Your dreams, if you remember your dreams, keep a dream journal, and then you can kind of go back and think about it. And there's something to the writing it out part. You're commemorating your dreams. Yeah, I think there's power in that, in the commemoration. Now I'm just making up words. All right, well, there you have it. I wish you the best on your journey, and I appreciate you if you've made it this far into my listening, into my hearing, into my speaking. Yeah, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and just make sure you're doing it to be accountable, to be authentic, to be you. And regardless of who else shows up, who else witnesses, who else sees or acknowledges or whatever, you still do you and be you and get all the more stronger because of it. Okay. Okay. Love you.